Hey everyone, and welcome, welcome. I'm so excited to have you with us today because we have Neil Twa with us today. And I should have asked you if I said that right. Did I say that
You
correctly?
nailed it. Well done.
I nailed it. Look at that. I eventually will get that correct because asking people ahead of time, because I usually do. And
Well, you coulda had
sometimes
some fun with it too.
I
That
don't
woulda got
even
us
know.
off to a great start.
Sometimes it is just fun.
Yeah.
But we're talking today about success mindset. You
Mm.
guys, this is my jam. I love this. This is so awesome. And I love that Neil's with us today because he is super, super about sharing success mindset with people and helping people help build people up, especially in entrepreneurship. And he is a homeschooling dad. I mean, kudos to
Woo.
Neil. Awesomeness surrounded by girls, he just said, which is so beautiful. And he just is embodies the success mindset. In the few times I've talked with them, we had a great conversation when we first met, and I was so impressed at how his level of thinking in success principles and what he's done to apply them is really pervasive throughout whatever he does in his life. So it's not just in business, it's not just with his family, it's also with himself and personally growing. And it's just so beautiful and it's so my jam. I love it. I love it. I have actually been involved and been learning success principles and leadership principles for over 20 years and been teaching them for just about as long. So I'm currently teaching a class right now for our local homeschool teens, success for teens, and we're going through some stuff that's hard thinking for kids, but it's so important. And what if you had that gift of success mindset when you were a teen? I mean, wow. How would your life have changed? How would things have been different? And that's what Neil's all about, which I'm super excited to have him with us and share with you about how you can teach your kids success mindset. And of course, as we know, and something I teach a lot is Neil's, I know he's going to say this, is that we have to have it too, right?
That helps.
Exactly, exactly. So
It helps.
it helps. It does help. So
Yeah.
Neil, I would love for you to introduce yourself and just share with us a little bit about what your background is and why success mindset matters so much.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. I'm honored to be here and excited to share these topics that are near and dear to my heart with family and kids and business. Family, kids, and business. Yeah, we'll put it in that order. So yeah, really, I mean, at the end of the day, my journey has been a long one. I don't look that old, but I've got a few lives under my belt. Maybe I do look that old now. I don't know. I'll let everybody else be the judge of that. But I lived a couple of lives in my 49 years. And so I've had a lot of opportunity to see what risk and reward looks like, what real failure looks like in life, and what real success looks like. And by that, I've had an opportunity, I think, to just be in a walk that hasn't just helped myself come through these challenges and be resilient and persevere through things, but it's also helped others just by telling the testimony. And it's been a long one since I've told it in this way. So let's kind of back it up. So it's something you might be interested in, not my mom. But I mean, I have been involved in technology to some degree since I was 16. I got hooked on the CompuServe computer my friend had, and we were too poor to have our own. And his dad worked in a government office where they had the first network computers, and so he would allow us to go down on a Friday night, and we would install Doom on the machines, and then we would do a micro LAN party until like Sunday morning, and then we'd have to uninstall everything and put it back, before the office is open. And so I got to playing with that and got really hooked on it when I was young, way back in the day, and ended up going to college. I say that because I never wanted to go there. That was my fallback position. I actually wanted to be a fighter pilot. Went in to do the training in my senior year, and it turns out I couldn't fit in the cockpit because I'm too tall. I'm 6'5". However, my height is from my waist up, so they couldn't put the helmet on and close the cockpit. So I was out. They're like, "You're out." So it was a fallback to go to college. I went on a music scholarship, got almost a full ride scholarship to a liberal arts college, but I did not want to be there, so I failed out 3 times in 3 years before I finally decided it was enough of that. Decided in my world, college was a scam. This was a stupid thing to be doing and spending money on. I needed to go figure out how to make money. And right about the time I came to that conclusion, the internet became a big thing. And with that, I'm like, I want to get into the internet, a job, a high tech, something in that area. And that's what I did. So eventually kind of worked myself into that. And through teaching myself programming in the after hours and staying up late, learning how to do internet web-based programming and stuff, I got a job as a contractor at Sprint in Kansas City, and then eventually got to apply to a new division where they launched the first mobile phones. So I was into an early startup in 99 called Sprint PCS, where the first mobile phones were going to market. Still have that same phone number that I've had ever since then, which is weird. because it was one of the original ones they handed out. And we watched that division grow insane. By the time in 2004 came around, there was 80,000 employees. I was a 5,000 badged employee into that when I my first W-2 job at Net, 19, managing a team of 5 other people whose average age was dead. I was like the young guy, and they were like 20 and 30 years older than me. So it was a crazy time with this startup. But that gave me a lot of life experience. Figure out how to do it. If you don't know how to do it, fake it for a little bit, go figure it out, come back to the job and keep going. And that's kind of what I learned to do, because I think everybody was doing that for a bit when no one knew how to use the internet and all its tools and technologies and awesomeness. But I got really good at it and got to figuring out where I fit into things. I'm very good in the middle. I'm not super techie, and I'm not the guy who is super like on the financial side. That's my partner, Reed. For the business and forecasting and things, he's extremely good at that. I'm somebody who's in the middle. I kind of understand them all enough to be dangerous. So I fit better at that CEO level because I can oversee the vision and opportunity of things. I can go to certain verticals of understanding, but I'm not an expert per se in each of those verticals. I just know enough to be dangerous so that I can make sure the experts get what they need and they're the right people to do the job. And that's where I fit really well. And I learned that through my years in IBM as well. I got hired out of the Sprint to go work at IBM. And again, not wanting to be in the corporate world because I didn't want to be in college. This was just a means to an end. It was a way to get information, knowledge, make money, and just keep growing until I could figure out my own business. And by the time I kind of decided I wanted to do that in 2006, IBM had said, "Oh, by the way, we're going to be moving your job next year. We're not sure what's happening." 2007 rolls around. I get married in March. And they said, "Oh, we figured out, and you can have early retirement or move to Argentina." And I was like, "Oh, well, early retirement it is. I'm out." So right after we got married, I left my job behind, took the severance, and left. That same year, my first daughter came about. In around October, my wife was in a high risk pregnancy situation, and so she went on bed rest. And so we became the first dinks that moved into the first poor family who's, by year one, we're in a new business, new kid, and, new marriage and no income. So when everybody says, "Is there a perfect time to leave and go and do business?" And no, there's no perfect time. You just go for it. You go for it. And, in some ways you hope for the best. You use your faith as much as possible, and you just keep walking. And that was 18 years ago. And there's a lot that's happened in 18 years. Fast forward, we got into physical products through marketing and an online understanding of the marketing engines and paid traffic and media and that kind of stuff. And it actually led me to the physical product world, the actual creation of physical and private label products. And that's where I kind of found my home, and I've been doing that for the last 12 years, building, discovering, growing, scaling, exiting, and now acquiring companies around the physical products of e-commerce and brand building. And that's it's so fun. It moves quickly. We developed and adapt new products. We test and market new things. We are just going through a transitionary phase on a new acquisition of a large brand that we're working on right now into our portfolio. And so we're very busy with that. And there's just a lot going on now in the world of business and physical products.
For sure. Oh my gosh. You have lived several lifetimes. Absolutely, for sure.
Well, yeah, I
And
forgot the
man,
divorce part and the bankruptcy. We can go to that later if you want to talk about that, because I
okay,
got some of
that's
those
another
too.
You have 9 lives. That's what it is. You have 9 lives.
9 lives. I've been married to my current wife, my final wife, if you will. I know it sounds terrible when I say it that way. My one true soulmate for 18
There
years.
you go.
But I wasn't ready for her and I had to go through a marriage, my trainer marriage, which sucks. Not recommended. In order to
Absolutely.
figure out how to really become a husband and a father. So
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing I love about you is that what we were talking about when we first connected was we talked a lot about the different ways that your mindset and your values and the way that you apply the things that you apply to business, you are also teaching your kids and you apply to
yes.
your family. And so, can you talk a little bit about that success principle mindset, that success mindset, and just what is it and why do we need it?
Yeah, right. Well, we need it because kids are naturally sinful. And they want to take your time, their energy and money. They want to take a lot. And so we have to work on training them into their own resilience as they grow up, and their own mindset of really what it gets down to is self-confidence and abilities and self-confidence to do the things they can do without mom and dad doing everything for them or anybody else doing everything for them. And so the success mindset for us has built a couple of pillars. of foundations in the way we've thought and trained. And some of the biggest ones are that they are 100% in control of their own emotions and their own actions. It's the last thing in the first principle of control the controllables that they can do. They can't control mom and dad. They can't be a fox in the henhouse between our relationship. They don't supersede our relationship as parents, and they can't supersede any other relationship in this world. They can only control what they can do. They can only control the way they think about how things are done, and they can't control other people's way of thinking or doing things. And that's the number one rule: control the controllables, right? And so it really gets down to self control. And out of self control comes self confidence. And out of confidence comes a mindset of resilience, perseverance, tenacity, a can do attitude. I'll ask them, do you need help with that? No, I got this. All right, I'll be here. Right. It comes down to, it's, I can't do this, dad. It's more like, hey, I'm having trouble with this. Can you help me? So we say things and we change language that change output. Right. So we change the way we say things. And it's a very different way of trying to understand how to mold a mind that grows and shapes and thinks on its own versus one that requires you to think for it. And I think a lot of parents think that raising a children is thinking for their children until they can think for themselves, and you kind of forget the idea that this person should be thinking on their own, and your job is just to guide and direct them for the benefit of the outcome, which is them becoming a well-rounded, successful person in life, as you may or may not define that. In our world, it's defined as, number one, somebody who has faith in the things that they do, a Christ-centered relationship first, and then second comes all the other things to support that activity once you have that foundational thing in place. With that, you then have greater adaptability in life. You can flow and go with things that change that aren't good. In our house, no one gets upset when it's like, hey, we were planning on doing something and it changed. They have now adapted to that situation. It's like, oh, hey, well, we were going here, but now we're going to go here instead. Or, hey, we were talking about doing this event, but this event isn't going to work, so we're not doing it now. Instead, we're going to go do something else. And they are extremely adaptable in any change mindset. Hey, that's okay. We'll figure it out. No big deal. Every one of my girls has learned conditionally through daily, weekly, monthly training to become people who are resilient and self doers. Okay. Getting up early, getting their chores done. Did you get your chores done? Yes, better be the answer, because if you're going to tell me no, you should just get up right now and go do it. And we live on a 50-acre homestead, and there are a lot of chores that everybody gets assigned to do. No one is being micromanaged. If they're micromanaged, they already know they're off the rails. Right. And so we have changed this pattern of behavior through conditioning, and conditioning is very tough, especially when you have more children. But here's the thing: once you get past three, it actually gets easier. Why? Because they help problem solve with each other before they come to us. Okay. And so they end up self managing themselves, but also by proxy through the connection to their sisters. In this instance, they manage each other through that process. Right. And through helping each other. These are things that are not inherent in our human being nature. They are not inherent in children. They have to be trained and taught, right? And so as we go through that, growing that self-confidence, growing that adaptability, growing that perseverance and tenacity, the problem solving starts to kick in as they naturally look for ways in their own confidence to come up with answers. That may not be the way I would have done it, and that may be different than mom's going to do it. But at the end of the day, if they've made an attempt to solve that problem, and we see that they made a good faith effort, we're going to reward that. And then if necessary, maybe direct a little and say, here's maybe a different way of thinking that you might be able to do this. Right. Now, some may misrepresent what I'm saying as friendship and parenting, and we are the last things and to come to, we are not friends. Dad has to remind everybody, hey, in case you've forgotten, I'm your dad first and foremost. I'm not your friend. I will be your friend later, and that'll be a lot of fun, and we're going to enjoy it. But right now, I'm your dad, so we don't do these things, and this is what we don't. And this is how we don't handle it. And I think that firm thing was not. I mean, that was sort of set in me and my parents, but I wasn't homeschooled. Neither was my wife, and we were both public school kids. So take it for what it is. And my wife finished her degree, and I didn't. Which some people may or may not like that in the world, but that's fine. I don't care anymore. The end result is that it is a process by which we have both died to ourselves in the relationship of taking on the ownership of our children, and have sought to build them into people, in simple terms, that we want to be around. I want to be around my kids, and I can't say that I've heard that from a lot of families and parents. and they extol that, like, yay, it's time for the kids to go back to school. I can have self time for myself. There's so many things that are wrong with our cultural thinking today. And I don't mean to get on my soapbox, but really, if you're looking for children to achieve adult and young adulthood and turn into good citizens who are productive and can work for themselves, then the one thing you have to be willing to do is sacrifice to yourself. You have to die to the ideals that you thought you needed, that you wanted, things that you think you need or should have. You need to put yourself last. As a father, the thing that I do and have done for my wife and children is put them ahead of me in everything. Okay. It's only in the last 5 years I even bought the truck I wanted. Right. Literally. And so everything has been plowed into doing and giving the things that they need. Do I have food? Yes. Do I have clothes? Absolutely. I have a lot of the same clothes because I don't think about it very much and I just wear the same stuff because it's just stupid for me to think about what I wear all the time. And I've gotten into the place where they do, and have and don't need anything. And because of that, and things are now set up in such a way where there isn't a need for things anymore, and there's just a want or a desire, if those are going to be applicable, then dad can do some of the things he wants to do, or can have some of the things that he's wanted to have. And now that I'm in that place, just know that it took a long time to get here. And I don't think everybody fully appreciates that, right? Because they are we seem to have a lot of selfishness and the way we think about raising children, and I think as we are as parents. So I don't know if I'm quite answering your question in terms of what I consider to be a success mindset. Maybe I went off the rails a little bit, but um,
No, no, not at all, for sure. There's so much wisdom in what you shared right now, and it ran the whole gamut. So, if you guys were listening carefully, what he was talking about was building a culture. So that's something we talk about all the time. That's what I help parents do is build that culture, right? Where we are inspiring lifelong learning, we're building up leaders. And he's talking about building up self independent, self-sustained people that can think for themselves,
yes.
that are confident, that can go out into the world and solve problems and figure things out and 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 have relationships with other people.
And be able to communicate, talk, and be a good person,
Right.
be a faith following person as part of ours. We have the faith, family, friends, finances, and then freedom. That's the pillar of our life. You cannot stack those things up in any different order at the end of the day. And this is one of the things we've really installed into our children's brains. I say installed, not instilled, because it's
It's
something you have
true.
to keep reloading
It's true.
over and over and over and over and over and over again. In fact, I jokingly said one day, I'm just going to create an app with all the top like 20 sayings that my daughters keep coming up with. So I can just hit a button instead of repeating myself like over and over and over again. I'm just going to hit a button, to just say
Totally.
the same things over and over again.
Yeah.
And they're
I've
not
said the same
stupid.
thing.
Yeah, they're just not always listening. They hear you, but they don't always listen. Big difference,
Mhm.
right? But I think you're right, and I think there's an opportunity for everyone to do that. And one of the things we had to do to create that environment was to get out of the world. So as my wife left her job and I had left my job, and
Mm,
we
mhm.
decided that purpose and value for us was our family first above all other things, then we had to look at a way to do income, build a business, and ride that purpose and value together. And so when she said, "Hey, I want to homeschool, I don't really want to go back to work," I'm like, I'm all in. Like, I never considered that because I've been a corporate guy for a while and that wasn't what my family did. And that's not new. And we're the largest family we've had. She has one sister, I have one sister. So it's like, no, we're not a big family, right? But now we have the big family. And so it was really about, like, how do we instill that value? How do we go as far as possible? How do we make sure that this happens? And so it did require things that not everybody's willing to do. We got rid of some of the cars. We lost one in a bankruptcy. We got rid of the house because we needed the money to go longer, right? We needed to sustain this against the tide of what is culturally the norm of a growth structure, to not put ourselves into a place where you say, well, we can't do these things because we can. It requires consequences for your choices, positive or negative. Selling the home that we built, that we plan to stay in for a long time, losing the cars, that was not fun. Moving into a rental property in a condo for a little bit wasn't a lot of fun either, especially when people were trying to break in the back door at night. That wasn't super cool. And so, these are just things that we were willing to sacrifice to keep this purpose and value above anything else. And in the longevity of that, I feel like that with our faith, God rewarded us through those challenges and trials to a position where it got easier and it got a little bit better. But I don't see people willing to do that. I see them making excuses. Well, Neil, you don't understand this. Well, Neil, you don't I have this. Well, Neil, I go to a job. Well, Neil, my wife this or my husband that. Or Neil, we have these cars or I have a mortgage, Neil. You don't understand. No, I get it. It's the fifth pillar. It's freedom. You're just choosing to enact your freedom differently than I did. You're also choosing not to dominate the established understanding that freedom is a choice. You're choosing to say the consequences don't match up with the benefit. And that's your choice too. But you're
Yep.
going to have to also make a choice here soon. So the question about whether or not why I homeschool and why that has anything to do with success is because I am training that into my children from the ground up.
Yeah,
Right.
this has so much to do with starting with the end in mind. So you're thinking about that purpose, that mission, that whatever your
Yep.
ideal is for raising your kids. What is that end goal that I always talk about? That end goal, that picture of what you want your kids to, who you want them to be,
Yes.
not necessarily what you want them to be doing, but who
It
you want them to be.
100% at the end.
And then you start backwards and say, what do we need to do to create
What are
that
we doing to achieve
environment,
that?
that culture to
That's
be
right.
able to raise that
Yeah.
kid up?
And we
That's
raise our
so
businesses the
intentional.
same way, right? We build our businesses
Right.
with the end in mind. So we've built our family with the end. And the end in mind is I want my family around me with grandchildren and people who want to be a part that I enjoy having community and fellowship with. And that's my end game. So to get to that end game, I'm building and instilling the idea that the primary aspect of their faith is to understand their freedom. And that's not just finances. I know a lot of people hear business and immediately equate to finances, but
Right.
finances is just one way to profit in life, right?
Yep.
Profit in life is in your mind if you have freedom of thought, freedom of ability, freedom of choice that you still have, even if the consequences don't always look favorable, you still have that freedom. And the first part of owning that is recognizing your opportunity,
Oh, it's
right?
so true. In fact, it reminds me, my husband and I were a part of a fantastic network marketing company for almost 20 years. And it was a leadership development company. And we made not a dime. We went in debt the entire time. We did make some money, but it wasn't like net gain. So
Yeah.
it was not a financially profitable thing. However, the rewards of who we became in the process, of who we were, we honed ourselves to be, and the experiences that we had, it allows me to do what I'm doing today. It allows me
Yeah.
to fulfill that purpose. So that is such a beautiful way to explain it. I think that you have all these different ideas of what success looks like. And so teaching our kids success isn't always monetary.
It's not always monetary. It's the
That there's other
output of your
things.
activity, the self-confidence that comes from your learning, acknowledging, okay, and doing, creating experience, positive or negative, extremely important, so that you gain the wisdom that everybody wants. All right. So that you can have the knowledge of the wisdom capable of what decisions you should make and who you should be with. And that's very important, especially for women in this world, I believe, because our second rule is the most important decision you'll ever make is who you marry, right? That is a control the
Absolutely.
controllable at the end of the day. Who you really, if
Absolutely.
you want these success metrics to be a part of who you are and you want that instilled through a relationship and eventually your own children, who you choose to marry is being extremely important. They're going to have to know this, be trained into it, and have the idea or at least the understanding of that foundation of who you are so that you don't change for them. You're not even necessarily asking them to change for you. You're just looking
Right.
for that compatibility that says, hey, we're in the same page of life and our thought and what is considered success for who I am as a person. And for my girls, just to be very clear, that isn't a goal for them to go conquer the world. It used to be, go out, become a power woman, get a business, get a life, get a career, do these things, be powerful. And I died to all of that along with my wife because what I realized was that puts a lot of women in the world in very compromising positions. I know that doesn't agree with people and some may want to argue with me, and that's okay. This is my personal opinion. You can take it with or leave it. But the end result is my daughters now want to become mothers. My daughters now want to be supporting in a business, even if they're not the only one in it. They want to find somebody who is interested in doing business because they know how to be that way, because that's how they've been trained. My wife has been alongside with me for 18 years. She has come through a process of being a RN who got trained and went to college and got a job and did all that into now a wife who supports a business, who supports somebody who's in business, who now understands how to deal with that kind of relationship. It's not for everybody. I'm not the easiest guy to deal with because I have to deal with a lot of the world,
Yeah.
right? I have
Yeah.
to be the protector of my family to the world. I have to be the provider of things for my family. I am the lead dog. And because of that, I take certain attitudes towards the world or certain things that don't match up with their feminine side because
Hmm.
it's my masculine side kicking in as a protector and provider. And so I have to work to balance those two things out. What I don't want is my women to match my energy,
Right.
right? That keeps them in a feminine position to be a lady who might do what I think is the most important job ever in the world, which is raising better people
Yes. Feminine
to
power is
change
is a
this.
different kind of power for
It's
sure.
a totally it is the
Yeah.
power at the end of the day, right? It is ultimately the power to shape minds is the greatest power ever to get them into a position of thinking, not, what to think, but how to think. And that's one of the things I love about conversations with my young daughters. They're
Yeah.
12 to 17 is that they get to think
Mhm.
and we get to have those kind of conversations. And many
Mhm.
times it's not regurgitating what mom or I think, it's what they're coming up on their own. And I love that because that means there's a spirit of their own embodiment, their person that's coming alive. And I can't wait to see what the next 10 years holds as they continue to adapt that and become, more women.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
how I
yeah.
say
They,
that
it is fascinating what they come up with, and it's so amazing when you can have those the depth of conversations that only exist, I believe, within a homeschooling environment because
yes,
you have the time to be able to do that and the
that is right.
opportunity to the culture to
We're
develop
always
that
around.
relationship where there is that listening happening and the exchange of ideas, whether they, I don't agree, well, why, and then having that discussion about that
Yep,
is so so important to their future success in that help they can have those discussions with other people without being offended, without
that's right.
taking
A
on,
and what they can control is, not being
yeah, what they
offended.
can
What they
control.
can take action on
Exactly.
is what 100% they can take action on. And it really starts to shape the way you see, the differences in other families that we're around who have a very different family structure than ours. And as we see that, they become aware and have gotten a little older, especially my older daughter, of the major differences in the two. And we've had a lot of conversations about that because she's just like, why do they do this? Why are they thinking that way? Why are they
Oh,
not like
yes.
like it makes a like there's this gap. It isn't like, well, we're better. We don't
Nope.
have those conversations. We're different. We're different because we choose to do these things. You can also choose to do things differently than they are, but you can see the differences as you've gotten older as to why we say and do things this way and why others are doing it that way. And by your own spirit check, by your own walk, you'll decide which one you feel is best for you. And hopefully you'll see the power in what we've arranged and why we have spent so much time dedicating to the growth of this whole family is that it's for your benefit.
Yeah,
Right.
we have those
I
conversations so many times with my
right.
son, and there's so many times where he comes in, he's like, I don't he's like, that's kind of why don't they even I don't understand. And I'm like, okay, let's look at what information they have.
Yeah.
Let's look at their, and we have grace for them. We have, we understand that. And then we say, but that's not what the way we choose because of what, right? So
And because we're a
so
homeschool family who
beautiful.
also has a faith, we'll go back to the Bible and say, what does the Bible tell us about this? Did Jesus say something about this? We're all going to listen and see what we can learn. Right.
Yeah, I
And
love the culture that you're creating here, and I love the way that you're using the example. Not only do you have these conversations with your kids, you create, they have their responsibilities on the homestead, they have
yep,
their homeschools, the way that the mindset you have helped them create is also not just through conversation and their duties, but also
yeah,
with your example. So in how you approach business, how you work with people, how you are, the amount of time that you work, what are you doing during those times, how you relate to people, all those things are watching that. And I love
yep,
that is exactly what I think is the best reason to pursue your purpose as a parent, because they are watching you.
they're
And if
always
you
watching. They're
want
always
those
learning.
kids to do
Always.
that, and you
Yeah.
want them to be success mindset, then let's watch what we're doing. I have to watch what I say. I have to watch
Yeah.
how I'm reacting, what my control, as you say, control zone, which is totally important. And that is so, so important. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Can you give us just one last little tidbit? Because I know we're running out of time, and I do want to make sure that everybody has a chance to connect with you
Yeah.
because you do have a special gift for us today as well. But one last thing that you would leave for parents to help them help their kids develop this success mindset?
I think as parents, one of the difficulties, we get caught up in life, we get caught up in our own goals, we get caught up in the things of the world and the culture, and we have these concerns or we have fears or we have, what ifs and what isms and that kind of stuff. And I think that what comes to mind was a book called Welcome Home, and there was a phrase in there that would refer to the mountains we were supposed to climb, we decided to carry instead. And I
Mm,
think there are too many people who are carrying mountains of regret and old things and things they couldn't do, and they're passing that on to their children, even if it's subconsciously unaware that it's happening, right? And the way they say things and the way they respond. Like I don't say I don't have time to do this. I stopped saying that about a decade ago. What I tell my children is, I would love to do that with you. Let me find the time to get it, and I'm going to do it with you. It's not that I don't have the time. It's that right now I have a different purpose. You are an important purpose, but I'm going to get back. We're going to do that. I'm going to make it happen. And then I actually follow through on it so that my word is good, right? Because
mm.
we can choose how we prioritize our time. We are not a victim. And too many people say, I don't have time to do this. Could you look at your 7-year old, 8-year old, 12-year old in the face and say, instead of saying, I don't have the time right now, and look at them and say, you're not a priority?
Yeah.
Could you do that? Because I can't, right? And I
No,
and that's exactly what that translates into the mind of that child.
absolutely.
Okay. So we got to stop saying we don't have time. When we control the words and the actions of our words, we empower others. It's extremely important that we understand how we empower our children, right? Because I will not tell them they're not a priority. I will tell them that I need to prioritize that time for them, and I will do that. And then I will act on it so they know that that's good. And I think a lot of parents don't realize how impactful those statements are. When you
Yes.
celebrate your children going back to school, you are demeaning their time with you. You are pushing them away from you. Okay. When you say we only have 18 years together and we have to do these things, now you're setting timelines of expectations that are unrealistic.
Yeah.
We have an entire life together. Let's talk
Hmm.
about this in very different language. So I would leave people with the challenge today to think about what you're saying before you say it. Think, then act, then speak. Okay. The change in that dynamic could create such and powerful changes in your children. You would have to go test this on your own to figure it out. I can tell you from personal experience, it makes a very big difference with children, even when it's not your own.
100% agree with all of that. That's an amazing quote. I love that's such a powerful perspective. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
The I want to make sure that we get a chance to get in touch with you. And can you tell us a little bit about your book? Because I know
Mhm.
that you have reserved some copies for us, which 10 copies for us, which are very limited. So if you want a copy of his book, please make sure that you reach out right away. And there's a link that you can go to that I will post in
Yeah.
all anywhere you're watching or listening to this.
Anywhere you're watching. So really at the end of the day, I want people to understand if they're going to think about a business or an opportunity that creates that lifestyle, they might consider e-commerce. It is a mechanism by which I've been able to become not only financially free, but available for my children. We lived on a homestead. We created a lifestyle design because e-commerce has allowed us to do that. And specifically the physical product world. So the book is written around that playbook, around that strategy, around that opportunity to learn the steps that we went through to become successful in our businesses. And there are 15 different chapters. It's actually based on interviews from my High Voltage Business Builders podcast. We're coming up on our 200th episode here. And those 15 are specific interviews in the areas that we focus on in the product process of building a company to an exit. And then talk about resources and supportive resources, as well as case studies and stuff that are around there. And it's meant to help you understand the strategy of building a business to an exit. And that exit creates that generational time and wealth freedom opportunities. And this kind of business model can do that when you deploy the right time, energy, attention, and money. So the book, Almost Automated Income with FBA, is a process by which you can understand the strategy of going from where you are and in 3 to 5 years doing something that no one else will do so you can live like no one else can afterwards, which is the E-Myth, which is an amazing book you should also check
It
out.
is an it's a good book. Yeah, and you guys, I've read so many books on business, on all kinds of businesses, not just the one that I do personally right now, but also what's and knowing Neil, what's in that book is gold because you have mindset thinking, you have things that you can apply even if you don't have a business to be able to apply to your life and grow better and think differently. So I know that there's a lot of gold in there, whether you're business oriented right now or not, or whether you have a different type of experience, business that you will benefit from that book for sure. And Neil, is what is the best way if people have questions they can contact you?
Well, the first thing is anybody who wants 10 copies
Yes.
can go to the URL here below us,
Mhm.
voltagedm.com/free book. Use the code FREEDOM and get a copy of that book for free. That'd probably be step one. That same domain,
Right.
voltagedm.com, is where other information, training, and resources are available. If you have any interest
Beautiful.
in the e-commerce business, if you want to learn how to leverage the largest online platform for selling, Amazon FBA as your first sales channel, we talk about that there. And yeah, those are all the great information plus social media. If you want to go check it out, I'm on all the social media channels. Just look for TWA or Voltage, and you'll find me on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and everywhere else.
Awesome. Neil, I am so grateful for you. Thank you so much. I know you're super, super busy and you're in the middle of all kinds of things. So I really, really want to honor you and just thank you so much for your time today in investing in us. And I know that there is a huge mindset shift happening right now for everyone that's listening to this. So I really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on. It's been an honor. I appreciate you.
All right, you guys, I will talk to you again next week. We will have so much more goodness to share with you. Bye bye.